Today we got a good old Bob question. In case you guys are new around here, because I know we get new subscribers all the time. Bob questions are when I have someone who doesn't want to be named because everybody watches the videos these days. That's what everybody says, and they might get called out for asking the question. So he will be anonymous, and we call him Bob. I haven't got one for the women yet. I don't think. To figure out one for the women. Anyway, today's question comes from Bob, and he says that he is a sort of a student who is kind of in sort of a higher authority at the gym, one of the upper belts, and he says that there is a student in his gym who's a blue belt, who's strong, heavy, and is really good at getting to side control and during rolling. Getting the video started, we already got an ambulance. First one. Maybe we'll get another one. He says that when he gets to side control, he just starts to get tight and squeezes the crap out of people, holds position, and he doesn't move. He sits there for like 2 to 4 minutes or more, basically lays and prays the round out, and then goes up and does it again to someone else. Now, he says that, he doesn't have a particular problem with it. He's like, whatever. But he's noticed that some of the other guys in the gym don't want to go with the guy. He's heard them talking about this guy and how frustrated they're getting. And, because, let's see here. He says that a few other ones, they find his approach a little too much or boring. And quite honestly, they're getting tired of it. That's what he says. And so he feels like he might be in a position as a higher belt, one of the head guys in his gym, right, to go up to this guy and talk to him, say, hey, man, listen, you need to open up and move around and do stuff with your game. Start trying some different weapons, things like that. And so he sends me the question to bring this minute and 38 long ramble to the actual question. He says, Chewy, have you run into anything like this before? Have you ever seen someone who holds top position for 2 to 4 minutes, does nothing at all, and just sits there? Any advice is appreciated. Sincerely, Bob. So, brother, thank you for the question. And, man, I've been around jiu-jitsu since 2003. Of course, I've run into people like that. A lot of times it was wrestlers, right? Because we would have wrestlers come into the gym, and pretty quickly, they became good training partners because out of the box, they had wrestling to back them up. You show them a couple guard passes that they get pretty decent with, and they're already tough to deal with, right? Because they have takedowns, they have guard passes, and then when they get to side control, they have a really good pinning ability. And so they would get really good at pinning, and you're right, it is frustrating because a lot of times some of the wrestlers I went against, they would get down and smash people, and they wouldn't move. They would just sit there and hang on to people because that's what they'd been trained to do, right? Now, again, you're blue belt in your gym. I don't know what his wrestling experience is. But again, he's doing the same thing. Now, there were people back in the day that I knew who got really frustrated with that too, who chose not to roll with those people, right? I never did that. When I rolled with those guys, it would frustrate the piss out of me too. But when I would walk out of the gym that day, I'm like, all right, what can I do to figure that dude out? Because I want to beat him, because again, I never want to go into the gym and say that I'm not going to roll that person because I can't beat him. I'm like, I want to figure out how to beat everybody. That's how I've always been. I'm very competitive. And so I'm like, I'm going to figure this guy out. And so I always had that mentality of going into it. And the beautiful part is that because of that mentality, over the years, I've rolled with guys in tournaments and other gyms or whatever else, and I typically don't have problems getting out of certain positions like squeezy pins because I've been dealing with it forever. And I never shied away from it. I always, sometimes I would take my medicine and get my face smashed, but I would go into it willingly and say, yeah, let's do this. I want to feel that pressure, right? Whereas some of the people that I know that kind of shied away from it, they don't have that ability because you can't develop that ability necessarily from just knowing. You could know and escape, but it's a different thing to be able to actually apply it. And so I learned how to apply it against some of these squeezy wrestler types who would get to side control. While I saw other people not, I'm better because of it. And then they get smashed still because they never developed that ability. And so to those people in your gym, here's the deal, bro. Bob, I wouldn't talk to the guy who's holding people down. I would talk to the other students because they're bitching out, right? Not to be mean to them. That's our second ambulance. We've got put up a little ticker here, like 2. I'm gonna wait till it's gone. There we go. They're bitching out. And again, it's not to be mean to them or to say that they're, whatever. I'm not trying to be overly mean to someone, but they are. Because again, jiu-jitsu is fraught with challenges. It's what the whole thing's about. The whole thing is that we get faced with a challenge and then we have to overcome it, and it makes us stronger and better, more knowledgeable and more able, and then we continue to do this, and different people pose different challenges. This is like people in your gym getting upset because they roll with this guy and this guy pulls guard on everybody and triangle chokes them, and they're like, come on, man, do something else, right? They're just angry because they're not doing well. Because if they were able to beat his side control, they wouldn't say anything. They wouldn't be upset with it. And there's so many things that they could work on along the way, right? Because they could work on their ability to retain guard, not get past. They could work on their escaping ability. They could work on their sweeping ability or submission ability off their back and stop him dead in his tracks. And by doing all of those things better, they would in turn make him have to adjust. And a lot of times this is how we do it in the gym, right? We maybe get something we get a little bit better than our training partners in a particular area, like maybe we counter one of their moves, and then they counter one of our moves, and then we just do this dance. But again, we actually have to counter it. We can't just tell them, hey, I could counter this if you did this. You have to actually do it. They have to feel it, right? Because again, jiu-jitsu at the end of the day is about us, what we can actually apply. Knowledge and theory is great, but what we can actually use against someone is very important. And going to the other guy for a second, is his way of rolling where he's just squeezing people and not doing anything? In your message, you said basically, unless you stuck your arm out to get Americana'd, right, the guy's not going to move, right? He's just going to sit there the whole time. Is that the best way to train? Well, probably not for long-term growth. He's going to hit a ceiling really quickly because that's all he's doing, right? He's just sitting there squeezing. And so eventually he's going to lack a lot of different areas of his game because of it. But for right now it's working, right? And so it's the responsibility of the other belts or the other people in your gym to make him pay for that and to counter him. So this way he's forced to adapt. Now, there's two reasons I think this really comes about most of the time. One is because human nature is such that a lot of times people are mentally weak, and we always want to, a lot of people want to give up their responsibility over the situation, right? Jocko would say ownership, right? You want to give up your ownership, your responsibility of the situation, and to say, it's not my fault, he's just not doing it right. He's not playing jiu-jitsu right, he's just squeezing me. Or you could say, like, look, the guy is squeezing me, he is holding me down, but what if I was in a competition? What if I was in another gym? What if I was in a fight situation for some reason? Got tackled by a wrestler who put me in a pinning combination. What are you going to do? You're going to just say, hey, will you ease up? You're not doing it right. No, you have to figure it out. You got to figure out those challenges. That's what jiu-jitsu is all about. And you don't want to give up your opportunity to take ownership and responsibility of those problems, but that's what a lot of humans do. They do it because it's easier. It's easier to say, I don't have any, there's nothing I can do. I'm just going to take my ball and go home. The other thing that happens a lot of times in jiu-jitsu is that, especially early on, people come into the gym and they get smashed by everybody, and that's the MO of jiu-jitsu, right? You're gonna get smashed and you're gonna get better because of it, right? Well, what ends up happening is people eventually get to a point where they're pretty good. You know, they start to get good, they start winning some, whatever else, and instantly, you know, we all do this, we're human, we play a movie reel in our head all the time about who we are and what we're doing. And you come to sort of know yourself as a certain way in your gym. Like, I'm pretty good at this stuff, and I can do this, and maybe I have pretty good side control escapes. And then you go up against a guy like this, and that movie reel is now shattered, and you're like, wait, I can't get out of this position, and maybe I'm a purple belt, I'm getting smashed by a blue belt. Frustrates you. Can frustrate people. And so a lot of times when people get to that level of comfort in jiu-jitsu at some point, they sort of lose their stomach for the discomfort that became the norm early on. So a lot of times you see this with higher belts more often than not, where they get to a point where they get pretty good, and then they start to shy away from the tough rolls or from the young guys that are going to smash them, or even the situation where they don't want to try new moves anymore because they're like, ugh, I don't want to do that because that's going to be uncomfortable. You saw this with leg locks about like 5-6 years ago, where leg locks were coming on the scene, and a lot of guys didn't want to mess with them. And so they found excuses as not to mess with them, and their jiu-jitsu got left behind because of it. Now, there is a caveat to that. If the guy is dangerous and hurting people, which you did not say was the case, if they were dangerous and stuff, there might be a reason to avoid the rolls, right? If you're 140 pounds, 130 pounds, and there's some guy that's like 240, and he's hell on wheels injuring everybody, well, then yeah, maybe you stay away from that guy. But assuming that they're just giving you a good smash, well, that's a chance to grow. And again, just bringing that all in. So just a couple ideas to chew on, bro. So yeah, I would talk to the people in your gym, tell them to stop getting upset about it, to figure it out, to focus on what could they do to fix the problem rather than saying this person's doing it wrong. And then once the person starts having his side control countered and he starts running into problems, then you can come over to him and say, hey, listen, let me show you a couple things you could do from side control. That would be my advice to you, Bob. And again, hopefully that's helpful to you. And for any of you guys out there that are watching this and have a guy in your gym that can squeeze you like that in side control and you can't get out of it, don't make excuses about it. Go roll with that guy as much as you can until you figure the damn thing out, because you'll be a better jiu-jitsu practitioner because of it. And guys, thanks for watching the video. I'll talk to you next time.